Hello everyone, welcome to this session on how to utilize the UK-Australia Free Trade Agreement. My name is Gary Lee, I'm from the FTA utilization team at the Department for Business and Trade. So just to kick off, a very quick, what is the Free Trade Agreement? So Free Trade Agreement 101, as it were. So a Free Trade Agreement is an agreement between two or more countries, setting out the rules that cover the trade in goods and services. It reduces restrictions on imports and exports, and secures market access, which can make trading easier and cheaper. And I'll go into more information and detail on this in the next few slides. So you can see on screen that the UK currently has quite a few trade agreements with various countries. These include rollover agreements, continuity agreements, as well as from scratch free trade agreements. And the UK-Australia FTA, as you can see, signed or came into force in 2023, is one of these brand new from scratch free trade agreements. As I mentioned earlier, these free trade agreements are designed to remove tariffs as well as regulatory restrictions for businesses when they're trading. Now, it's worth noting that some of the provisions in the free trade agreements occur automatically, meaning that you don't really have to do anything to benefit from it. So these largely related to those in the services sector, so free travel for business people, access to markets, non-discriminatory measures, that sort of thing. So these things just happen in the background, and if you are in these particular sectors, then you don't really have to do anything to enjoy its benefits. Having said that, for those who are looking to export goods to specific markets, in this case Australia, you do have to do a bit of homework before you can benefit from one of the biggest improvements provided for FTAs, which is 0% tariffs, or we call preferential tariffs. So just to go over some of the very broad, the kind of key provisions that FTAs bring to the table. So the first part is for those that provide or sell services into specific markets. And of course, there are many other provisions in the background as well, but these four are worth flagging if you're not familiar to what an FTA does. And the first one, as I hinted at earlier, temporary entry. So that basically means if you are a business person looking to conduct business in a specific country that we have agreements with, it should be easier for you to gain access to that country. So this does not replace visa regimes of specific countries, because visa regimes can change all the time, but FTAs stay relatively static after it's been signed. But it does offer more legal guarantee in legal surety in gaining access to that market in that country for business purposes should you need it. So it should be a smoother process if you try to apply for a business visa for whatever purposes. Data flow. So this is quite important as well. So the UK-Australia FTA in particular has a special digital charter which allows the free flow of data, and that this makes providing services and also in the sector such as medtech, then this should be quite advantageous. Specifically, there are no justified data localization requirements, meaning you don't have to have a localized data center in order to conduct business there. So you can send your information from Australia back to the UK for analysis and then back to Australia if it's required. Having said that, it's just noted that there are always going to be legal caveats on a lot of these issues as well. So do talk to the importer and do consult local regulations as well on the legality of storing certain types of data and what other kind of special requirements that they might have in those specific markets. So equal treatment, bit of a blanket one. Equal treatment basically means that if you are going to be operating in Australia, you'll be treated the same way as an Australian company or a competitor from any other country, and you will not be discriminated against just because you are a UK company. And then finally, access. Fairly similar for investment. There should be open market access for a UK company in Australia, as well as the same kind of protections and movement of capital. So now we move on to the kind of selling goods side of things. And as I mentioned, you might have to do a bit of homework if you're selling a particular product that's being manufactured in the UK. You can enjoy 0% tariffs, but you need to prove that your goods are what is called originating. which basically means it counts as a UK produced good. And there are different ways of meeting this requirement. And within the FTA, these are referred to as product specific rules, or PSRs. And this is based on your HS code. And depending on the nature of your product, the rules might be slightly different, the requirement might be slightly different, but they're all designed in a way to make it fairly easy for you to prove whether something is made in the UK or not. So there's two very quick examples on screen. One is called change of chapter rule, which basically means if your final product, in this case biscuits, is made from products from two other completely different chapters. So if you notice, biscuits is in chapter 19, wheat and milk are in different chapters, then that counts as sufficiently manufactured and meets rules of origin requirements from the FTA. And another type is called regional value content, which usually stipulates the percentage of the cost of your good is from the UK, or the 40% of the material used is originated from the UK, and that counts as well. And this, just to note that there are additional guidance links on this slide deck, which will be distributed after the presentation, so you can sort of look at additional guidance on this. So once you've identified your commodity code and you determine that it meets the rules of origin, you need to fill in a declaration form, which you can find online as well. And then after that, you need to have that accompany your good and give that to your importer, so they can declare on their end that this is a British product and they don't have to pay additional tariffs on it. Now, there's a very powerful tool online offered by the government website of gov.uk, and this is called the Check How to Export Goods tool, commonly known as the Check tool. It's a very, very useful tool. As long as you have your HS code for your good, you can basically identify what the product specific rules are going to be like on that product. So I have a very, very quick screenshot of an example on the right hand side. I think in this case is for hearing aids of the code 902140. As you can see, it's set so that's being exported to Australia. And at the top of the example, you can sort of see there are three tariff amounts listed. Luckily, in this case, hearing aids don't actually have a most favored nation duty amount of more than 0%. Usually, the majority of goods being exported to Australia under the FTA have to pay MFN duty of 5%. So sometimes that might come up for your particular good. In this case, it's 0%. So if it's in the case of 5%, then you can sort of see that there are two more duties on top of that. The preferential duty under the UK-Australia FTA, which is 0%, as well as the preferential duty under the newly enforced CPTPP agreement, which is also 0%. Now, this is an interesting case here. So after signing CPTPP, if you are exporting to Australia or any of the other countries that we have a bilateral agreement as well as a CPTPP agreement, you can choose which rule you use, which rule you want to meet in order to meet the rules of origin requirements. So if you look at the rules on the bottom of the screenshot, you've got one set of rules. You've got a regional value content rule, for example, saying not less than 40%, a change of subheading. That's uncovered under the UK-Australia FTA. Now, under that, you've got another set of rules, basic rules, under the CPTPP agreement, which offers you a selection of different types of methods of meeting requirements. So basically, based on which rule to you makes the most sense or easier to meet, then pick the one that you want and declare under that particular method. So they will have different templates that you can use for declarations. So just make sure that you are picking the right one. But the end result is the same. Both sets of rules should produce 0% tariffs, allow you to enjoy 0% tariffs if you meet those rules. So it's worth flagging that we also have considerable amounts of online guidance for the UK-Australia FTA. These can be found on the Australia country market page on grey.gov.uk. We have screenshots on the screen now, and they contain both thematic guidance on some of the key provisions such as rules of origin or procurement and so on, as well as very handy sector guides, of which life sciences is one of them. So I highly recommend everyone to take a look at the online guidance that we have available. Just to round off, I just want to remind everyone that DVT offers a comprehensive export support ecosystem. So what that basically means is that we have resources and online help for every step of your export journeys. So whether you are planning to look to export to Australia, so I just mentioned the country market pages, so that's a great place to start. Or you want to talk to someone about your particular business plan, in which case you can reach out to our international market service, or maybe see if you're eligible for international trade advisor, who can offer you tailored one-to-one support should you be eligible for that support. And then you can use the check tool to do some internal compliance work and make sure that your product can enjoy 0% tariffs, for example, if you're exporting goods. Finally, you can also reach out to our export support service at any time if you are stuck during your exporting journey. Now remains just for me to say thank you for attending the session on what is the FTA and how to utilize the FTA to Australia. And this presentation deck actually contains a lot more resources for you to look at, handy links and other examples on case studies, for example, of other companies that have exported to Australia. So please take a look at it once you receive it. And like I said, please contact the DVT's export support service if you have any other follow-up questions for your particular export journey. Thank you, everyone.